What is going on, live reality games community? It is Dom, and I am done with Survivor Grand Rapids Fresh Meat. We had our finale air on Friday of last week, and it is done. I am done editing. It was an absolute blast. And Drew, you've been with me the entire stretch of it. How are you doing? How was the finale?
It's a great season. I love, of course, seeing like what happens in the end game, and of course, getting to see the eventual winner. But it's kind of bittersweet because I want to have something else to look forward to watching every week and talking about with you, Dom.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing with my free time from here on out. I know I have some Ponderosa episodes to edit.
Oh, nice.
Valencia is somebody else who has been with us throughout the entire stretch or most of the season who's been commenting on us. Hey, guys, how's it going? Thanks for your support, Valencia. Appreciate it as always. But yes, we had our finale air on Friday, and we had our final six face-off, and our winner was crowned. And joining us today on our two-part episode recap, today is the first part, is two of our final six members who placed sixth and fourth. So from here on out, if you have not watched our 2-hour epic season finale, please go ahead and do so, because from here on out, we are having spoilers, and we are digging deep into everything that happened because these players were there for it all. So without further ado, let us welcome in our sixth place castaway, Tom. How you doing, Tom?
I am doing fantastic, Dom. Just
how
fantastic.
was the finale for you?
What was that?
How was the finale for you?
Oh my gosh, it was just like emotions like going in every which direction, and it was a long epic episode, and it was just so great.
I'm glad you liked it. And joining us as well is our final four, fallen angel, fallen casualty, just barely making it to the final three, just so close. Claire, how you doing?
Hello, I'm good.
How was that finale for you? Was it as heartbreaking for you as it was for us to watch?
It honestly, I was watching it back with Juliana, and I was saying it was like a fever dream. I do not remember any of that happening. By the end of it, it was all like, I can't even remember any of it. But yes, it was so much fun to watch.
Well, I'm glad you guys had fun to watch. It has been an absolute blast being able to bring everybody together over the course of the season and recap. We filmed this back in July of 2022, and so it aired from December until now. Quite the four-month run. And so we are going to dive right in, talk about absolutely everything that we have talked about or that is aired throughout the season, some behind-the-scenes stuff going forward. Before we get into that, Drew, I know that you have been a fan of both of these players throughout the season. What is it like having them right here for you to interview, I guess, right now?
I'm so excited. As you guys, as all of our viewers know, I've been the number one Tom stan since episode 1. And Claire, so fun story. I'm actually rewatching the season right now with my best friend who did not watch the episodes as they were coming out. And I think he is probably the number one Claire stan on the planet. So it's been really fun. It's been really fun getting to rewatch and him rooting you on, because I think you played a really quiet game from my perspective watching it the first time. And so I maybe didn't have as much to say about your gameplay on first watch, but rewatching it and you did a lot more than we saw, and I'm excited to dig into it and talk about it.
Yeah, I think so. On day 2, at the end of day 2, there is a behind-the-scenes clip that Matt filmed of me, and he goes, "How do you think the season's going?" And I remember looking at him, and I was like, I think we're going to see a lot of, kind of unanimous votes at Tribal Council going into day 3, but I think a lot is happening behind the scenes that we haven't just seen yet. And I think you guys were the ones working behind the scenes, really making a lot of these moves happen, because while we did have our big players like Juliana, Ryan, Sydney, they couldn't have done it without the information that you guys were sharing as well. And I think you guys both played a very good behind the scenes game, both very different, but we wouldn't have the outcome that we have without you guys. And it was so fun to be able to watch it back and piece everything together. So I'm excited to dive in. But without further ado, let us start from day 0. I know both of you guys have a very separate story about how you got, brought into this. and it played out kind of very differently. Tom, let's start with you. You came in. How much knowledge of Survivor did you have?
Absolutely zero. I mean, like literally, I think during the first tribal council, like I learned what a immunity idol was, and I literally didn't know what I was doing for the first 2 episodes, and you can clearly see that.
It was funny. I mean, I think on day 0, you watched maybe 20 minutes of an episode, and you're like, oh, okay, so this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, I was like, okay, now I know what's going on, I guess. Like,
yeah. So seeing your transformation from kind of like this, I have no idea what's going on, but I'm going to give it my all, to like the very dominant social player that you became, social and strategic player, triple threat, actually, physical player as well.
Yeah.
Mr. 3 immunity wins. Yeah, it was really, really fun to watch. Claire, I know you came up all the way from Cincinnati with Juliana and Matt. How did you get roped into it, and what were your expectations kind of coming into the season?
So I have always been a huge Survivor fan. I think I like mentioned it on the show, but as soon as quarantine started, I was like, all right, we're starting season 1, episode 1 of Survivor, and we're like, what? Real Survivor, not Survivor Dearborn. Sorry. I have watched some Survivor Dearborn though because of Matt. And so I came into this kind of the opposite of Tom. I was like, all right, like I know there's immunity idols. I know all of this stuff's going on. Did I actually use that to my advantage? No, but that's beside the point. Yeah, so came up from Cincinnati, and then obviously Juliana's roommate, and then Matt, they were like, come do it. It'll be so much fun. And they were right. It was so much fun. And I'm so glad that I was able to come up and do it with you guys.
I'm glad you're able to come up and do it as well. I think your knowledge of Survivor, especially in the first couple of episodes, really, like, I guess, paralleled everybody else's knowledge because especially on your Red Tribe, we can kind of get into that a little bit. The politics of that was so kind of funny to watch, how everybody was just, throwing names out. And I'm rewatching too, actually. And you were the one that was just like, I don't really think people know what they're doing. Like,
Yep.
they're kind of just talking about people in front of them. And like, it's a very interesting, like, take. Claire, what was it like navigating the first initial like day? I know you were on the chopping block for a little bit, but courtesy of Liam. However, how was it, navigating that on day 1?
Yeah, so day 1, like coming in, I already know that I am like you said, on the chopping block. Even before we're voting and stuff, I know I'm not a very strong physical player, and the weak females are always the first to go. Whether or not people have the knowledge of Survivor going in about that, that's how it happens. And so going in, I was like, I need to find my way through this because I know that's what's going to happen. And so really what my number 1 goal was, just sit there, gather information, and be nice to people, make friends with people, make them like not really want me to go, and not see myself as a threat, because as soon as I start strategizing or start doing anything and I'm a weaker female, they're just going to like absolutely throw me to the dust. Like that is just going to get me out immediately. So that was my first thought. I was like, I have got to lay low. And then obviously that continued throughout the game because I was like, this is working, and just make people want me around.
Yeah. Tom, like on the opposite end, you were immediate from the jump. People were talking about you. Kristen volunteered, and then Taylor voted for you. And so you kind of were on edge from the initial, day 1, first tribal council. And then you were actually the first one to kind of create an alliance or at least talk to Sydney and Liam about possibly being on the same page. And then you very quickly later on in the game, like said, there's no alliances, but we'll get into that later. But what was that like for day 1, navigating Red Tribe?
Okay, so early on, I learned there's this immunity idol thing. So you see me like going off into the woods, and I'm like, oh, I got to get this. All right. And then I realized, like, just before the trial, I'm like, oh, wait, I should probably be talking to people. So I started talking to Liam and Sydney because I knew them outside of the game. I knew I wanted to form an alliance with Sydney. Liam, I was a little hesitant because I don't know. I just couldn't trust him for whatever reason. I don't know why. And apparently other people couldn't, but like I don't even know why. But anyway, so I'm like, I gotta figure out a quick alliance, and then after that, I was just like, I'm just gonna coast. I'm just not gonna give anybody a reason to vote for me. And that's why I was like really scared at first about like messing up in the immunity challenges. So
Yeah, you had quite a few memorable moments. Our Connect 4 mishap.
Yes.
And yeah, you had a couple other ones that escaped in my memory. You came out to play during the tire challenge. That was pretty nice. And Claire, who can forget our puzzle challenges that you participated in?
Listen, Claire won the slide puzzle.
Yes,
I did.
Eventually.
Watching it back. Oh my gosh! It like a minute in, I saw if I would have just moved a piece, I would have like had it so quickly. But like 10 minutes, what was it? 10, 15 minutes later. Finally. Anyways.
It was a very interesting day one, seeing everybody kind of come into their own, not just you guys, but basically the entire cast kind of come into their own. And then everybody spent the night and we swapped on day 2. You guys had very separate stories kind of going into day 2. Claire, you were on the new Red Tribe as an OG Red, as an OG Cascade. And you kind of were able to maneuver that. You had one tribal council, and it was just a unanimous vote for Taylor. Tom had a little bit more of a hectic time over at New Ionia between handling Mark and going after Zoe. Tom, the question that I have for you is just what was your mind at during that Zoe vote? I feel like there's a lot of unanswered questions.
Yeah.
We had that first podcast for that.
Sure. Yeah. No. Basically, like when I decided like I wanted to have my own alliance that was very low key, and I didn't want anybody to know about it, and I didn't want any high key people that I didn't trust to be in alliance with me. And like I had heard that Zoe had opened up her immunity idol in front of people, and I knew that she was very outgoing and stuff, and I was just like, I don't think this is going to be a very good fit for me. So I basically just tried to get her out, and I hope she's not upset with me, but
we'll see. The other confrontation that you had was with Mr. Mark, our fan favorite of the season. For those listening, Mark was our fan favorite. Out of 3,000 or something votes, Mark received 2,000 or something votes. So
wow. Nice.
He really came out swinging and campaigned hard. So congratulations to Mark. However, let us revisit that tribal council where he pulled out his idol, said that he was voting for Sydney, yet you received 2 votes. Tom, what was it like kind of navigating Mark, just in general, not just at that tribal council? That was probably your next big move.
I think Mark was the least trustworthy person that like to me in the entire game, just because I think that he wanted to play a villain, it seemed like a little bit. And also it didn't seem like he could keep anybody close to him. He was just like always bouncing all over the place and scheming with different people. And it was kind of a cool thing to watch, like in the episodes and stuff. But like for me in the game, like I couldn't be close to him because of that. I wanted to play like a hero with really tight alliances and do that sort of thing. So
hero time.
I avoided Mark.
Yeah. Tom, I do have a question for you because this happened multiple times during the season where you guys would go to tribal council, you would receive votes from people who you were in an alliance with. They would tell you that they voted for you, and then you'd be like, oh, it's fine. We're still in an alliance.
Okay, so I know what you're referring to. You're referring to Sydney voting for me.
This happened with Sydney, and it happened with Bridget.
Sydney,
okay,
Juliana,
no,
Bridget.
but okay, so okay. So the Sydney one, if we can remember back at the tribal, Mark said right before the tribal, or right before the vote, he said that Ryan had given him his idol. Okay. And he said that he was going to vote for Sydney. What I felt after the tribal council was that Sydney felt like she was like threatened by that people might actually turn and vote for her. And that I was the guy who'd been voted for pretty much every tribal council, like at least 1 or 2 votes. So I was like the other person to give votes to. So I understood that was not the reason she voted for me, but but at the time that's what I thought, and that was my reasoning for it. The Bridget one, you can obviously see me like I like went against Bridget at the end. So
Yeah.
I think that one marinated for a little bit. I think at first you were like, yeah, that's fine. And then like when she spent the night, you were like,
No.
wait a second. She did vote for me. So I completely understand it. Claire, going back to your only swap tribal council, how was that navigating? Because you did come down, you came into a 5-3 swap. You find out Liam's throwing your name around. You find out Jen ends up making an alliance with you. Like, what was navigating that middle part of the game for you like?
I was flying by the seat of my pants. I was so confused because, so initially, I don't know if it was shown or not, but like me, Taylor D, and Liam, we were like, oh, we'll stay Red Tribe strong. But in my head, I was like, I don't trust either of these people. I know that that's not actually going to happen. So I need to find other people to have my back in this situation. And so that's where kind of Jen came in and was like, hey, I want to work with you. And I was like, great. I need other people who I like actually know have my back, because then obviously we see, I was like, yeah, of course this happens. Like Liam's throwing my name out. And then Taylor and I never really worked together throughout the game. I just kind of knew that, you know, we weren't really on the same wavelength and we didn't trust each other essentially. So yeah, working with Jen, that was helpful because I knew that she had a lot of connections with people from the other Blue Tribe. And I knew that the people from the Blue Tribe were kind of like, Taylor S is like not really our favorite player going on right now. And I think that I was able to kind of use that to my advantage, stick by Jen in that situation. And then somehow, I don't really remember exactly what happened, but we were able to get more votes on Taylor S.
Yeah, Claire, I think one thing that you were really good at throughout the season was using other people as shields, whether it be intentional or unintentional, where you would like latch onto somebody for a couple episodes and like be like almost you'd be like an information collector. I don't know how to phrase that better. You collect all this information from like this person or this like small group of people who you were working with, and then eventually the people would get taken out and you'd move on to another group. And I really liked that. I thought that was
Thank you.
I mean that's what kept you in the game.
Yeah, that was pretty much, well, first of all, thank you. But yeah, that was pretty much my strategy was, I mean, watching back, it's kind of hilarious because I'm just like always off to the side in conversations, just like listening. I'm just there and I'll be like just staring at the ground. And I never really, I don't throw people's name out very often. Like if someone asks me, I'll say something, but I'll kind of skirt around it. And I can find myself into each group and kind of maneuver my way, and like people will just say stuff and I'm just there, and then I can go and tell whoever I'm trusting at that time, you know, what's going on.
Yeah, Claire, I think especially looking back, one of my favorite moves that you did was, you know, align with Jen, because even though Jen was a big name, I think it was a very smart, mutual, beneficial, you know, relationship, because Jen was in a power position despite, you know, having your name out there. She was still controlling a lot of votes. So when your name did come up, it helped you out. And still when her name would come up, it helped her out being aligned with you. And I think that's a very underrated thing that didn't really play out because Jen only survived a couple more rounds, but it was a very smart move for the time. And then moving into merge, you guys merged at 13, I want to say.
Yeah.
and it was I'm actually rewatching. I'm on the merge episode right now, and it is a shit show. You guys came in and so many different alliances going on, and whether you want to call them alliances or not, connections, let's say, intertwining. Tom, you wanted to prove that you didn't want to vote with Liam, and so you commissioned that. And then Claire, you were kind of moving in between. And then on top of all that, Jen and Bridget came together as sisters, as people who made it all the way to the end, found out at Final Tribal or whether it be at Ponderosa. How do you think that twist impacted your game, especially in those first 2 rounds before Jen was voted out? Tom?
What affected?
The sister relationship between Jen and Bridget.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, I think both of them were incredibly strong players. I think they were hurt by the fact that they were sisters, to be honest with you. Like the fact that like Bridget had to go against her alliance with me to vote like in Jen's favor. And then maybe it was beneficial for Jen because she had a target on her back, but like for Bridget, I feel like Bridget could have won the game and at least gone to the final 3. And I feel bad because like that twist ended up kind of ruining her chances, or at least was the start of that. And I would have loved to have been an ally with her all the way till the end, but
Bridget, because I know you and Jen shared some looks on the island.
I think she was giving looks.
Okay,
they weren't mutual.
Just want to clear up rumors. You know, the forums are blowing up about a Tom Jen ship, but so I actually agree with you. I think both of them tried to played the best game that they could. Claire, you were mostly aligned with both of them. Were you sensing anything, or was there like a similar playing style for them? Like, was it a surprise for you finding out they were sisters?
I was completely oblivious. I had no idea. And then we find out at Final Tribal, and I'm like, what? This whole time you guys were sisters. No, I had no idea. I think it honestly helped me out that they were sisters, because then I kind of, like when I was aligned with Jen, that meant that I was aligned with both of them, essentially. Like they were not aligned, but like one was at least going to fight for me if I was on the chopping block. And then eventually, I mean, I worked pretty well with Bridget. I mean, like we were pretty aligned on a lot of things. And so having that as well, you know, it could have helped if I made it to final 3, I think. But, you know, alas, I
so close.
Didn't make it there. So close and yet so far.
So we have a lot of recapping to do for not just the finale, but also like from the merge all the way up until final 6, where Tom, you get sent home. I do want to be able to provide an opportunity, or at least see where your head is at with a couple things. So I don't want to put you on the spot, but whoever gets their answer first, feel free to go. Question for you: what do you think between Liam, Jen, Spencer, Addison, Kyle, and then I believe it was Taylor and Bridget, out of all of those people, who was the most impactful vote for your game, and which one do you like regret the most, if any? Like which one was hurt you your game the most, and which one didn't? So whoever has their answer first.
I would say that my vote for them wasn't impactful so much as like, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
For example, Tom, I think at the Jen vote, where it was between you and Jen, and you managed to rally the votes against Jen, I think that was your turning point.
Oh, that was for sure like the turning point for me. That was where I after that vote, really, that's when I was like, okay, wait a second. Like a lot of people are on my side, and like I might be able to get to the end. Like,
that's what I was just about to say.
That's when the confidence started for me.
I could tell after that vote that you kind of like something clicked for you, because from that vote moving forward, basically until you get eliminated, your name doesn't really come up anymore. Now, mind you, of course, you did win like what, 3 immunities. But I think at that point, I realized as a viewer, like, oh wow, Tom is actually playing a really strong social game, despite his name having come up at multiple previous tribals. Tom has social power here, and with everybody looking at the bigger names like Ryan, Juliana, Bridget starts getting looked at this point. Addison has his idol at this point. I think that gave you room to really start to play, and I saw at that point, I was like, oh, Tom is not just this character that I'm watching, have fun playing this game, but Tom is actually good at the game and is playing well socially.
Nice. Claire, what about you? Do you have a thought on what Tribal Council really kind of sealed your game, or was the turning point for it?
I don't know like the exact Tribal Council, but at some point, I think it was like near like the Jen Spencer, like the early on jury votes. That's also kind of where my name stopped getting brought up.
Yep.
And I think that's where I was able to stop being seen as like, oh, like she's a threat because obviously it changes, right? Like the people who you want out when you're on tribes are like the physical weaker players, and then people you want out at merge are like also, the people who are going to win immunities. And so I think as soon as the merge kind of got there, and then people like Liam, who I wasn't really aligned with, once they got out, then people stopped seeing me as more of a threat. And so I think that I was able to kind of stick to my riding under the radar and make more of those social connections.
Yeah.
Well, I think with the big names being looked at as the big names, the loud players being looked at, gave you the opportunity to submit yourself as a vote or a number for other people. And that's where your game also took off. Kind of a similar thing with Tom, because you were finally given room to breathe. It's like, oh, I can actually play the game now how I want to play it.
Right. I'm not like fighting for my life.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. I wouldn't say that your like name stopped coming up as a threat. I think it stopped coming up as like a throwaway vote, which did allow you to be able to play a little bit more. And that goes a lot in the merge, because the merge, I think Kyle became that, where everybody's like, oh, let's go for Kyle. And I think that's huge still, because you went from, playing from the bottom, worried about not having your name on the chopping block and getting that off. You were able to focus more on that social maneuvering. So I do agree. I think maybe after like Liam is when you started to get a little more comfortable with that forward. So going into the finale, so we were at final 6. Just before getting into final 6, how did you guys kind of feel about your chances of winning? We had you two, Brendan, Ryan, Sydney, and Juliana in the game as well. What was your path to victory at that time, and did you see an end, Tom?
Let me say, before they answer real quick, I was convinced Tom was making final 3. Like, I felt it in my bones. Like, I was so ready to watch that episode. I was like, Tom is going to make it to the final 3. I guarantee you he's not going to be a 0-vote finalist, so he's either winning or he's coming in second. I just knew it, and I have never been so crushed as to when Sydney was like, what if we just like don't vote out Ryan?
I know, right? I thought I was gonna win going into final 6. To be,
I think you would have, but
I was like, I felt really confident, and just didn't end up happening. But
yeah, I think that it's a fair assumption. I honestly think, Drew texted me. I think 5 of the 6 of you had a pretty good case going into the finals, and so it really was a crapshoot for whoever made it. So I think that was that was a pretty good assumption. Tom Valencia also thought that you would be in the final 3, and she also said that you were
Valencia
winner pick if Ryan was voted out. So
Terminator Ryan was one heck of a player. I don't know if I would have stood a chance against him, but I would have tried.
I think you had a shot as well with that.
I think the only person who threatens a Tom win is probably Juliana.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
from my perspective, but I wasn't there,
Yeah.
so
I think it's rough. I think Juliana might have an edge. I think you might be able to out-argue Ryan. Sydney might give you a little run for your money because you both played a very similar game and were from the same tribe on.
well, Sydney threw away her game, so
Yeah. We'll discuss that next week, Monday. But, Claire, what about you? I know you kind of went into Final Six like a little bit more hesitant, maybe, at least from my point of view, editing wise. What was your outlook at Final Six? Was the end in sight, or were you still fighting?
I was definitely still fighting. I remember someone was like, one of the cameramen when they were filming, they were like, who's your final three? Like, who do you want to take with you to final three? And I was like, I don't know. I just want to get to the next thing, which was not smart on my part. I really should have like had a core alliance in there. And I honestly, at that point, the people I were like closest to was honestly you, Tom, and Brendan. At least I thought I was closer to you, Tom. But
See, I honestly regret not being closer with you. I think like we could have been really good allies going forward.
yeah,
I think if I had aligned with you during that final six vote,
Mhm.
I think we both would have had a better chance of getting to the final three.
yeah, I agree. Honestly, at that point, that was like my whole thing. Well, first of all, I was like, let's make this a live tribal. When I like pulled you and Brendan,
finally,
I tried my best.
it was
So I
great.
pulled you and Brendan, and at that point, I was basically like, okay, I'm gonna pull Tom and Brendan, and I want to kind of make this like the three of us, because if the three of us go through, and I mean, you won the next, like, I mean, not the next, or yeah, you did win that immunity, but like the three of us could have gone, and maybe, you know, depending on who wins immunities, it could have maybe happened, and that would have made it an easier path for us. But
Mhm.
obviously it didn't happen. But that was like kind of, I guess that was my thought process, was like, I cannot win against Juliana, and I can maybe win against Ryan because people on the jury did not like him, and people on the jury, I didn't really do anything to them. But yeah.
It was, I think, Claire, Drew, do you want to share the text that you you sent me at Final Six?
Oh yeah, I believe the exact quote was, this was right before the Final Six Tribal Council happened. I think my exact words were, I think everyone except for Claire this episode did crack in the Final Six round, because the decisions that were being made were just nonsensical, and everybody was running around throwing out all these ideas, and none of them made any sense except for what you were saying, Claire. Claire, I was so mad. I was so mad at the events that happened. And in your confessionals, I'm like, okay, Claire's the only person making sense here. Great. Hope she can do something with that. Turns out the people decided to do their own thing.
Claire,
I can't even remember what was your strategy. What did you say there?
I think I was saying like, hey, it's gonna be 3 and 3. Like, we've got to figure something out, because at that point, I didn't really want to vote you out, Tom. I wanted to keep you and Brendan. And
Yeah.
I was like, the three of us can vote Ryan, and we would need someone else to go against Brian. But
Yeah.
then it was going to be the 3 against you. And so at that point, I was like, it's going to be 3 and 3. And then you see Juliana and Ryan talking to me. They're like, hey, we've got Sydney on Tom. The two of us are on Tom. We just need you for 4, and then it's on Tom, and you're safe, and you can vote with us. And I was like, all right.
Yeah.
Like, that conversation with Tom and Brendan didn't really go as planned, obviously, because you guys wrote down my name. And so yeah, that was my like goal. But
yeah, it was a lot of like, so Sydney's like, oh, well, what if we didn't vote out Ryan? And then Juliana, of course, is like, yeah, let's keep Ryan in. Ryan's asking Brendan for his idol. Brendan's like, sure, we'll do that. Tom is over here trying to save himself. And Claire, in your confessionals, you're just like, why are we not voting out one of the front runners? Like, why is my name being brought up? Why is Tom's name being brought up? Why are we not looking at Ryan anymore? And these other people are actively trying to save Ryan, and it just blew my mind.
Yeah. I don't know how to explain it. I honestly think it was just a light switch in some of our players. I do think Sydney had a compelling argument for why Tom should be going at that round. I don't know, Tom, you were a threat at that round. You had 0.
Yeah.
You thought you were going to win, and I think Sydney was the only other one that actually thought that as well. I do think it was a little misguided for her to think that you saying you wanted her in the final 3 was you saying that you think that you could beat her in the final 3, because I genuinely
no. What I wanted from the very beginning. From the very minute that Bridget made that alliance with me and Sydney, I wanted us 3 to be in the final 3. And that was my goal from the beginning. And I was going to say, okay, well, we're all going to have to talk our way in the final 3 to win. And we're going to face each other there. But up until then, I'm going to stay true. And I want us 3 to be in the finals. And after Bridget was gone, I was like, okay, just me and Sydney, I want to be in the final 3. And I don't know why she wanted me out, because I never was going to vote for her. I was going to try and get her into the final 3.
Hero Tom.
Well, I think it's because you could have beaten her at the end, and she recognized that. But I think we'll talk about this more. We'll talk about this more next week. But I think that by Sydney choosing to switch from going with you and Brendan, and instead, who you could beat her, Brendan absolutely would have not beaten her. Instead switches over to 2 people who actively can beat her at the end, was what ruined her game.
Yeah, Sydney had a very interesting episode. She did back up a lot of what her move was in her confessionals, and I'm glad she did, because just off the cuff, saving Ryan does look pretty sketch. And so at least, there was a game plan going for you, Tom, because you were a really, really strong player.
And I totally respect what she did. If she thought I was a threat, then she made further than I did. So she obviously did. She obviously did something better than I did. So
we have to remember this is also off of Bridget's tribal council, where Ryan vocally made some other people upset that were on the jury, and so I think there was a proper light switch to go off, and so. To us, and I remember even hosting, I was like, what the heck is going on? Why are we just letting Ryan slide through the game? I'm so glad that there was more depth to it, and it was a lot more of a power struggle, even leading up until the final tribal council. It was very much a power struggle between everybody. So I think we also just kind of dodged around, Claire, you said oh yeah, I talked to Tom and Brendan, they didn't really go for my plan. They voted for me. Tom, you were like, yeah, I don't really know what's going on. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Brendan gave his idol to Ryan, and that's why we kind of went for each other a little bit. So
a lovely culmination to a series of bad choices from Brendan.
Honestly, my only regret in the game is not asking Brendan for his idol. I bet he might have saved me.
Seems like it might have been first come, first serve for that
one.
Yeah. What it read as to me, and I don't know, Dom, I'm sure you have more insight on this. What it read to me as Brendan kind of realizing, oh, I'm not getting targeted, so I'm not going to need to play my idol on myself, and I probably should do something visibly, some sort of move visibly if I'm going to win at the end. And I think that was maybe his attempt at doing that. Now, it was misguided. Yeah, but I think that's how it read to me.
I agree. I don't think that was the move. I think a move would have been playing it on Tom. I think that would have been the best move possible for that situation. Brendan had a history, and I feel bad that he's not here to be able to talk about it. Brendan, if you're watching, you are missed. But he did kind of talk to me a little bit about his game plan. He chalks everything up to hitting his head with Ryan in episode 2. And he might have been concussed the whole weekend. So we'll just leave it at that. But I think he had a history of turning on Jen, voting out Spencer back to back. And so it was just kind of the cherry on top of Brendan's inadvertently getting his number 1 allies in the game out. So, Tom, you were, I guess, the sacrificial lamb to Brendan's karma.
I think I just got caught up in all the hullabaloo,
It was a hard to navigate.
Well, and
Yeah.
I just found that so interesting because Brendan is in this established trio with you, Tom, and with Sydney. Of course, we see that Sydney is starting to like falter from that and flip, but it
Yeah.
seemed like Brendan was all in on that. I mean, he verbally agreed to it in confessionals. He was like, "Yeah, I'm really close with Tom right now." So when he gave his idol to Ryan, I was like, "What is the logic here?" I don't like.
Yeah.
It did not make sense to me. Didn't. I'm sorry, Brendan. I really do believe that you're a great person, but I don't understand the gameplay.
Same. Claire, what was your reaction to that?
I was so frustrated because at that point, like, I honestly, Brendan was probably the one that I trusted the most in the game in that point, and he, I don't really know if it was shown, but like whenever my name was thrown out, he would like come, he'd be like, "Hey, this person said your name. This is exactly what they said." I basically was kind of like, like let's maybe not, but just inadvertently, and like, um, and so like I trusted him because I knew that like what he was coming to tell me was true, and so my thought was like, keep that idol, and then he and I, when Tom gets like, he and I can have that power going forward, and he and I can work together and do that because we had been throughout that whole time. And so when he gave away his idol, I was like, you are giving power to the people who have power, and we could have had power.
Yeah.
So I was so frustrated. I understand that he was trying. I think at that point he realized that the votes might have been against Tom or against me at that point, and so he was trying to gain favor with Ryan and Juliana,
Yeah.
which I understand. Like, I mean, I also kind of did that when I did do that when I voted with them, right? So I understand that, but I think we could have maybe flipped it if we saved Tom and then sent Ryan out. It could have been flipped, and the three of us could have gone.
Yeah, it was a hard episode to watch, but it was a very, very, very juicy start to our finale. And then we kind of go, Tom, you had your torch snuffed, and that I didn't know at the time the moves that you had made and the impact that you had on the season. I just knew that you came to play and you played hard, and so snuffing your torch, I was pretty bummed about, and seeing that and the progress that you made as a player. And you said, I remember you telling me one-on-one, you're like, I would not have wanted to go out any other way than like a juicy, epic tribal council. And I feel like that. So
I wish I could have gone out swinging a little bit better, but it's all right.
There's
What are
only
you
so
gonna
much
do?
you can do at Final Six. I mean, you guys had a live tribal, idols handed across. Like, there's only so much swinging you can do at that kind of tribal.
Yeah, and unfortunately, because Sydney had like so concretely changed her mind, I don't think that there was anything that could have been done. Probably.
Yeah. Besides going to rocks, and that's tough. That's a slippery slope to go on. So moving forward, we got a little bit of time left, and we can kind of breeze through our final five and final four. So Tom, you were out of the game for final five and final four. You made it as far as you could up until that point. So most of these questions may be towards Claire, but I also want to be able to hear your viewpoint from the jury. So final five, Claire, going into that, was it kind of like evident for you that like, it's either me or Brendan, or, were there any potential moves that you could be made, or besides just pleading your case?
So at that point, it was definitely just me or Brendan going out. At that point, Juliana had already gone up to Sydney and been like, "Hey, like, you guys want to be final three?" I knew that it was going to be Brendan, not me, going home. Because at that point, like, I was like, Juliana will not send me home until she has to. That was essentially like the thought behind that. And so I knew Brendan was going to be the one going home. Juliana and Ryan, like, they knew, like, no matter what they do, like, they stick together, they can make it to final three without like breaking their word to anyone. And it was nearly impossible to break through that. Like it just, at that point, there wasn't really a way I could talk myself through it. So at that point, I was just like, all right, like, we'll just see who wins immunity, and maybe that can change the game a little bit. And then Sydney won, and I was like, all right, so she's gonna stick with Juliana and Ryan at this point. And because which tribal was it where she told me to my face that she was voting for me?
I think Final Four.
Was that
Sydney?
Yes. Yeah. Which
Final Six.
Final Six. Okay. Yes. Because that's when everyone was going crazy. Yeah. And so at that point, I was like, Sydney would much rather stick with Ryan and Juliana than flip to my side at that point. So I think that's when I was kind of like, all right, Brendan's going out, and then whoever can win the next one, then that's how it's going to go from there.
Yeah.
At what point in the game, Claire, did you realize that Ryan and Juliana were so close?
So I think she told me at Final Five. Once we got down to, I think it was like right before Final Six, because it really became evident for me in the Tom vote for sure. I had an inkling about it at the double tribal, because he like played his idol, and you could just kind of see the connection between the two of them throughout the game, and like the way that they're playing and the way that their moves aligned. So I was kind of aware of it then. And because at that point, I also trusted Ryan, which is kind of silly to say because he said that everyone trusted him, but he had not done anything against me, and he didn't really do anything against me the entire game. And I knew that I could kind of trust him honestly at the rocks game. Where we were putting rocks in everyone's buckets.
Touchy subject.
And touchy subject, thank you. Which obviously did not pan out in my favor. That was a little rough one for me. But yeah, I know. And so like people weren't really putting rocks in my bucket, and that sort of when I was like, okay, like I can kind of play with Ryan tangentially. But then he was definitely closer with Juliana throughout that, and that became pretty evident right before Tom's vote.
Claire, I do want to do. Sorry, Dom, go ahead. Then I have another question.
Yeah, I also just want to make a note from the editing room. There's a lot that kind of got swept under the rug, but you and Ryan did have a very, very close relationship. You voted against Ryan at one tribal council. I think it might have been Addison's, and you backpedaled hard. And in the best way possible, you like kind of committed yourself to Ryan, and the only people that he was mad at was like Sydney and Bridget the rest of the game. You didn't put things in his bucket for touchy subjects. You voted for Kyle on the Kyle Ryan split with Juliana, and a lot of those little moves don't seem like a lot in the moment, but when you kind of see how everything plays out, all of those, especially at Final Six, when I saw you and Ryan kind of sharing, like there's extended footage of it, but like you and Ryan are like talking through the game, you know, kind of pitching things back and forth. And there's a lot more of a relationship there than maybe the edit was able to capture. I know I just didn't have I didn't have any like confessionals with you or Ryan, like kind of talking about it, but I could always pick up that you had like this unspoken bond. And it just so happened Juliana talked about their unspoken bond in every single confessional like 3 times. That we were able to maybe like do that a little bit more. So I do give you kudos for you know making the move that you did, and then you know working hard to be able to pick up the pieces that might have you know fallen from that. So
yeah,
Drew, go ahead. Next question.
Claire, I just want to do a brief what if scenario. So same Final Four, but you win immunity.
Okay.
What happens at Tribal?
Yeah, so this one, and I honestly thought about it because after I was voted off, I go back and everyone there was like, God, we wanted you to win so badly. It would have switched things up so much. And like, I think you could have gotten a lot of votes. So I think I would have brought Ryan with me because our games were so different that, and like I said before, like a lot of people did not like what Ryan did to them. And I didn't really have people who felt like that towards me, at least I thought. And at that point, I was kind of like the underdog they were cheering on.
Yeah.
And so I would have definitely brought Ryan. It's tough between Juliana and Sydney because Sydney, compared to Juliana, Sydney played more of like an underdog, like not underdog, but like more so under the radar than Juliana, right? And so that's where my game would be more similar to Sydney's. But then I know Juliana can talk through things so well, and I know that she can, explain her reasoning behind things, and I think that's why she was able to capture all of the jury, like in addition to playing a great game. So I think the best thing for my game would be me, Sydney, Ryan. I think that would have been the best shot at me winning. Although it would have broken my heart too.
And you think you would have been able to get, because Ryan and Juliana probably wouldn't vote each other out. So Sydney would have to vote with you, and it'd be a tie. So it'd go to a challenge, a tiebreaker challenge.
Oh, okay. Yes, you're saying I was.
Yep.
Okay. Let me go with this the other way then. So if that were to happen, I would have had to take Juliana and Ryan. There would have been no way to really break through that, because at that point, Juliana would not have wanted to. Her whole thing was like, I don't want to break my word to anyone, because she had already had to break her word to Bridget. So at that point, yeah, I would have had to go with both of them. And I mean, and that would have been fine, because Juliana and I were kind of like not outwardly working together, but like trying to make sure neither of us went home. And then Ryan and I were also working together. So
I want to note something that's fun behind the scenes. So like Final 5 and Final 4, even though I go over the rules with everybody beforehand and tell them how, rocks work and votes work and, how Final 4 works, everybody thought that the winner of Final 4 was taking somebody and the other two would be making fire. So they were playing like that accordingly and making deals about like, oh, if I win, like we're taking you to.
That's hilarious.
And so they like finally asked me, and I'm like, we're not going to fire unless we have to. Like, so we're just running it. And I think at that point, Claire, you were like, oh, dang, which was a bummer, because I think you got really, I don't want to say screwed, but like you got the short end of the stick very much at every opportunity that you might have been able to fight back at Final 4. Your ball bounced out on a technicality for the final challenge, which was an absolute bummer. I remember just like seeing that, and I did not want to call it out, but like we told you guys that you would be able to nudge it along, and that was just part of the challenge. We tried to do something epic for the final challenge, and I think there was just a lot of things that didn't work with it. And then on top of that, you gave a very good like 9-minute confessional for your final 4 confessional, but you didn't get to talk to Sydney at all because we wrapped it up real quick. And so I feel bad for that as well. So at every turn that you might have been able to try to do something, it really didn't come. I don't know how much effort it would have, made, because it seemed like those three were pretty signed, sealed, delivered on each other, but you still went down with a fight. And I don't think there was much that you could have done at Final 5 or Final 4 that would have swayed their vote besides win. So you got your torch snuffed all the way to the end, and you played hard, and that's all that we can ask for.
Thank you.
I think this is something I told Dom after the episode aired, or while it was airing. I said the Final 4, a lot of times the best players of the season don't make it all the way to the end. But I think something from my perspective as a viewer watching this, the Final 4 make up 4 of the top 5 best players of the season. And then I gave the 5th slot to Tom. So like in no particular order, but like those I think were the top 5 best players of the season. And I think that it's great that the 5 of you made it all the way to Final 6. Like it was a competitive finale. Nobody went into the finale or final tribal council. Nobody went in as like, oh, this person was dragged through the game. This person is, not up to par with the other 2 players. Nobody was a GOAT at final tribal council.
Yeah, I do kind of want to see where everybody's mindset was. If you could take yourself back to going into final tribal, Claire, I think your mind was pretty much made up for that final tribal. And then Tom, you voted for Ryan at the end. Was there any like, swaying that vote, or were you kind of like set to go for Ryan?
I was pretty much set from the moment I got voted out. I was just so impressed by the fact that Ryan escaped so many times. He won most of the immunity challenges. He knew when to play his idols. I don't think he made a single like calculated error. You know what I mean? Just like it was very impressive what he did. And I don't know. Juliana had an incredible tribal count or final tribal, you know, but yeah, Ryan's game, the final thing doesn't mean much to me when the whole game he just played insane.
It's interesting because we do see a lot of the time in the real show, and even like in the past seasons that we have done, that the final jurors kind of like already have their mind made up because they've played for so long, and then the earlier jurors have the most to say about, you know, how the game is going. I think a lot of people were upset that, you know, people were just seemingly letting Ryan to the end, and I think that was a misperception that just watching the episodes might have disproven. But going into it, Claire, you said Juliana was the clear winner for that. Like, she was your friend, but she also played a phenomenal game. I agree with you, but care to like kind of elaborate on that, why your vote landed on Juliana?
Yeah, definitely. So my thoughts were, well, and really just like watching Survivor, the show throughout, I always gravitate towards the players who play very much a strategic game, and like they're seen as one of the bigger players, but they're not who like everyone is gunning for, like Ryan. Like I really gravitate towards and not respect, but really value the gameplay of the people who are strategic and social and have everyone, you know, on their side. Not everyone, but you know, a fair amount of people on their side. That's not to say I did not respect Ryan's game so much. I mean, I do not know how he just didn't play his idol. I remember like coming back from tribal council and I was like, Ryan, how did you escape that? Like how did you do that? I don't know. I don't know how it happened. I mean, props to you. And so I was, you know, impressed by that. And I think a lot of people said that like that was just down to like different small changes right before tribal council, whereas Juliana was really able to like solidify her spot every tribal council, and it didn't come up to like whether or not she was going to play an idol. She had like socially solidified her spot every time.
Yeah.
It
was a really like one of the most competitive final threes that I have seen, not just on on Survivor Dearborn, but in Survivor in general. Like everybody played an outstanding game. I felt so bad that Sydney only got 0 votes because she played an incredible like first half of the game. Stumbled a little bit at the merge, but that shouldn't negate anything that, you know, she brought to the table all the way to the end. I thought Sydney played a very, very strong game. Sydney,
I would argue Sydney ran the first half of the game on the tribes that she was on, and even early merge, I think she did a great job.
I believe Sydney also only got 2 votes the entire season. One was Brendan's burn vote, and the other was Claire's vote for her at the final 4. The other player that got 2 votes the entire season was Kyle. So fun fact for you. Juliana had 1 vote, I believe, the entire season, and I'm not sure how many Ryan got throughout, but I'll have that tallied for next week's podcast. So it was a very, very different playing style from each and every one of them, and I'm so proud of all 3 of them on how they played the game and how they made it all the way to the end. So one last question about our final 3, and I kind of want to gauge your guys's opinions, because Claire, I know you were only with the jury for a little bit, but Tom, you were with them for 2 rounds, and I'm currently editing the Ponderosa videos, which should be out soon. I don't want to give a timeline. I'm taking a little bit of break from editing, so I'm trying to get through them. But what was your vibe of the jury? Were they a little bit bitter? Were they like kind of salty towards Ryan? Were they, you know, leaning one way, or was it up in the air going into final tribal?
I would say I thought I didn't think Juliana would get as many votes as she did. That's just the vibe that the jury was giving off. I thought Sydney would get definitely like a few votes, you know what I mean? But also I think there were definitely people on the jury that were salty about Sydney's game. So I knew she was definitely not going to get votes from certain people. When it came down to Ryan versus Juliana, I think it was just kind of up in the air. But like I felt like Ryan would beat her by a couple votes.
Claire, what about you for your brief time? Did you kind of get a read on anything?
I think I had 2 minutes to talk to everyone from the jury. There was like 10 minutes in between, and I was like, I've got to pee, I've got to get some water, and I've got to film my Ponderosa segment. So I think I had 2 minutes to talk to everyone. Basically, the only thing I got was like, man, we really wanted you to win that last immunity challenge. And that was pretty much it. And then we were like, all right, we got to go to Final Tribal. So I do think, though, that I think people were maybe between Juliana and Sydney. I think a lot of people who were voting Ryan were like very much like, I think Ryan deserves this the most. Like Tom, like you said, as soon as you left the game, you were like, I am going to vote Ryan for sure. Like he's my winner vote. I think a lot of people, it came down to who sold their game the most at Tribal. And I think Juliana sold her game more than Sydney did at Tribal. So I think that's definitely what a lot of things came down to.
I think so too. Juliana, phenomenal Final Tribal, and we'll dig more into the Final Tribal Council as well as the Final Threes game next week, Monday, where they join us and we're able to do our final podcast of Survivor Grand Rapids Fresh Meat and go over everything with that. And you're eventually, like I kind of mentioned, we will have the Ponderosa videos come out for you guys to be able to watch on YouTube. You'll be able to see how much weight everybody lost, all the juicy details with that. I think, Tom, you lost maybe like 5 or 6 pounds or something, which was kind of nuts. So I can't wait to get all that edited for everybody to be able to watch. In the meantime, throughout the entire season, we have been doing power players and power rankings from our eliminated contestants. And they've been ranking you guys, you, Brendan, and our final three, Sydney, Juliana, and Ryan. So how our power rankings turned out, coincidentally, was Juliana got first, Ryan got second, and Sydney got third, which is really, really cool to see.
That's crazy.
That's wild.
So to kind of give thanks back to the survivors that came before you that didn't quite make it to finale night, I want to be able to give a most valuable player award for the two of you. And Drew, I believe you also wanted to go for this, and I would love to be able to hear your opinion. So from our first boot, from Kristen all the way up to Bridget, final 7, who do you think played the best game, provided the most entertainment? Could be, however, a balance of the two. Who do you think played or is deserving of the most valuable player of Survivor Grand Rapids Fresh Meat? It can be the same person, different person. Whoever's ready to go, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drew, we'll start with you if you have one.
I have 2 names.
Okay.
One of them I think is the best player of the season who did not make the top 6. So like the next highest, and I think that's Bridget. I think Bridget playing again would be really interesting because now that she knows kind of how things work, she's figured out her play style. I think it'd be really interesting. I think Bridget was a great player. Obviously, she got voted out because she made one mistake. One mistake costs her, her spot in the game. I think if she makes it to final 3, she does really well. And the other person that I'm going to say is the person who I most want to see play again, and that would be Mark. Because I think Mark was extremely entertaining. Dom, I love watching chaos when I watch Survivor. So I think Mark provides that from both a character standpoint and a strategic standpoint. And so I think that would be very interesting to see play out.
Awesome. Tom, you got one or 2?
Yeah, I hate to steal from you, Drew, but definitely Bridget was definitely my honorable mention. I mean, like, I don't know how she got out when she did. I really think she played even a better game than I did. And I was just surprised she got out number 7. So
Yeah, that was a good episode. Yeah, I think we're all kind of still healing from that one. So,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Claire, what about you? Your MVP of the season?
My MVP. So you said the person who entertained you the most. Honestly, when we were out there, Kyle entertained me the most.
Yes.
I was dying. On the third day when he came out in his sniper monkey shirt, I don't think I had ever laughed so hard in my life. Like that
Yeah.
was
Same.
hilarious. I was also like very, very slap happy and very much like ready for bed that entire day. So that could have also had something to do with it. But he was definitely very entertaining. I think who had the best game overall? I had Bridget in my mind at the beginning of the episode when I knew we were going to talk about this. And now I feel like I have to say someone else. But I genuinely believe that she had a great game. And I think that a lot of the people who got out earlier on the jury, like Liam, Jen, and Spencer, they had big games in the first half of the game. And I think that's what got them out so early. Especially like Jen, she played so hard in the beginning and she really had like a handle on the game, but that bit her in the butt. And so I think Bridget kind of flew under the radar in the beginning and then started being more strategic, and people picked up on her being more strategic. But then people like me who were like, "Hey, Bridget, let's play together. Let's kind of figure this out." And like Tom, I mean, Tom obviously picked up on it too and was like, "Hey." So I think she really like had a handle on it. And yeah, the only thing was she became the target of like Ryan was like, I need to send someone out right now. And it because if not, it's gonna be me. So she became the target of that. And I think that's really the only reason why she got out. And I don't know if I would have made it as far as I did if she didn't get out at that point. So
Bridget's a great pick. I mean, Bridget came to play. I'm not going to list my MVPs because you guys are all my MVPs. I wouldn't be here with my show without you guys being able to make it. This was an amazing season, and everybody did come to play. Hard and fast and funny, and it was just such a fun time to be able to sit back and edit and relive everything. And now it's on YouTube for all you guys to be able to watch back and enjoy. I know I am because to be honest, like it is a fever dream. It's been a 4-month fever dream of just countless endless sleep or countless nights with no sleep and editing and getting all of it out. So I'm finally taking a step back and being able to watch and see what you guys were able to do. And it's so very, very cool to watch. Tom, I'm gonna sign off. Drew, any things before I sign off?
Yeah, I'm gonna ask my 2 questions that I always ask, so this should be quick. Number 1, would you play again, Claire?
absolutely. Yeah, it was so fun. And like I said in the final episode, like this is so out of my comfort zone. I'm very much in life. I'm very outgoing in life, but I'm very much like friends with everyone, and I would never lie or hurt a fly, you know? But in the game, I was like, I'll lie. I don't care. And that was so fun. That was so fun. And also, I didn't die in the outdoors like I thought I would.
That's always a plus.
I thought I was going to get eaten alive, and I didn't. So,
Tom?
So you guys glitched out when you guys were asking the questions. I don't even know what you said.
Would you play again?
Oh my God, yes. Are you serious? Like, I'm the most competitive person on earth. I'm like really upset I didn't win. So like, I want to go back out there and win this time.
Awesome.
And I'll do it for you, Drew.
Oh, perfect.
And I'll give you a shout out too.
Yes, when you're both on the Heroes tribe on Heroes versus Villains 2, you guys are my power duo that I'll be rooting for.
perfect.
The other question that I have been asking recently is, what would be your advice for people who play Survivor Grand Rapids in the future? Tom?
Pick a game plan and stick to it. And honestly, be yourself, like in a way. I know that you lie and you do all this stuff, but like the game is about people respecting you. If you can get more respect out of the group, then you'll go further. So and make decisions that make sense for the group, not just for yourself. and people will respect you.
Claire?
Those were good, Tom. I think, and this is kind of coming from what I wish I did, was make crucial alliances earlier on. I personally did not, I don't think, ever say, like, I know I didn't, like, you and me final 2, or like you and me final 3, like, I've got your back, you've got mine, let's actually stick together and do this. And I think maybe not super, super, super early on, because people pick up on that so quickly when they're trying to just nitpick and find anyone to get out in the beginning. But definitely merged, kind of like what Juliana and Ryan did, honestly, because they did it so well. Like, pick someone, stick with them, but pick wisely.
Yeah. Well, you guys certainly did come to play, and you set the precedent for, just what it takes to be a survivor. You guys both had such a fun arc, editing wise. Like, Tom, you started from the bottom, not even from the bottom. You just didn't know what you were doing, and you we'll say it how it is. Tom, I predicted you going out like early merge. I think in our pregame interview, I was like, I don't know what Tom did. For all those listening to this, I send out updates to our cast. I'm like, hey guys, here's what's going on. Like, wear this. And Tom would just like the message. And like, I knew very well Tom knew nothing about Survivor. And so I'm like, questions. And he's like, nope, I'm good. And like, just showed up, and I had no expectations. And Tom, you blew me away in all the right, best ways possible. You came out and gave good confessionals, insightful confessionals, great TV. I love your moments, because you were just so rawly, authentically yourself, learning the game and being able to see that. We don't see that a lot in Survivor anymore. Like, everybody's like a super fan, and seeing you able to adapt to not just the people around you, but to the game that you don't know was so fun to watch. And so I'm so appreciative that you came out and played, gave it everything that you had from the jump, and it was so much fun to watch. And so I'm grateful that you played, and I'm hopefully able to get you back on and play again. And
Dom,
Claire, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to thank you. I mean, this was one of the best experiences of my life, and I would recommend it to anybody. And you were an excellent host, and you did such a great job, and I'm so thankful for that.
Thanks, Tom. I appreciate it. I'm glad everybody was able to come together and have such a fun weekend together. I will remember this, not just because of you two, but all the behind the scenes stuff. And Claire, I know you drove up all the way, 5.5 hours, 6 hours probably, to play, and then drove back down again, after getting Final Four. Yeah. And I don't want to say that speaks to the dedication of the game, because I think that waters it down. It speaks to the friendships that you were able to have that brought you in together. I'm so glad that we were able to have that experience. You also played from the bottom, all of the pre-merge, found your footing in the merge, and were able to come up with a very, very intricate and elaborate social game. You didn't really have much strategy in there, but you didn't need to, because you had all the information that you needed to be able to make educated decisions and move forward, which I hope when people rewatch, they're able to see that, because it is so subtle. But until you make it to the final episode, you're able to see, your magnum opus kind of come onto the screen. So I'm really, really glad that you were able to, play hard and do what you needed to do. It might not look like it on the screen, but I noticed, Drew noticed, and a lot of other people noticed as well. So I think, you really, really do not listen to that final 9 subject. You deserve to be there. You deserve your place. You deserve your place on an all-star season. So I'm very, very happy for you, and you did great this season. So for both of you, I appreciate both of you guys so much. I'm hoping that we're able to do something to be able to celebrate it eventually. So, but yeah, this season wouldn't be as crazy and epic as it was without both of you. And I also want to give a shout out to Brendan for who couldn't make it tonight. Brendan was our Final 5 placement. He was 5th place. And while he does have one of the most infamous moves now in our series history, we honestly would not be here without Brendan. I meant every word when I snuffed his torch. He helped film 3 out of the 4 of our OG seasons and came on to play. I knew that he kind of knew that he wasn't full-fledged Survivor fan, but he still went out there, played his best that he wanted to, and made some memorable moments in the meantime. We would not be here without him, and I'm hoping that he's ready to go if we do it next season, and call up for his Survivor camera skills, because It's always great to have somebody else on the crew. But Drew, I want to thank you again. It's been crazy to be, at this point, we've been doing this for 4 months, to be able to sit down and be able to, discuss every episode. At this point, it maybe feels bi-weekly, but I'm glad that we're able to do this. Next week, Monday, we will have our final 3. Juliana, Sydney, and Ryan will be sitting down with us and discussing their games, all the things behind the scenes. We'll be grilling them, putting them in the hot seat, and figuring out what was going on, how they're doing, and just kind of catching up along the way. Until then, be sure to follow us on social media, Survivor Grand Rapids, for all the updates. And if you want, feel free to rewatch the season. It's fun. It's fun. And there's a lot of mention of Survivor Dearborn, so go ahead and rewatch some of those seasons as well. Again, guys, thanks for hopping on. We're at an hour and 15. We got a little too in depth, but it's a great listen, and I'm so appreciative of you guys being able to come on. So without further ado, we're signing off for Tuesday night, and I hope everybody has a great rest of their night and enjoy the rest of their week. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.